This meeting is being recorded.
So, guys, been a couple weeks. Welcome back, and we are back on track here. Brian Keith Noonan. This is the Q4 Yachtsoft Challenge implementation at the speed of focus challenge, based on the one thing. And I'm just wondering if we can kick off with, over the holidays, what kind of wins and/or challenges have you had with keeping up with your one thing, juggling everything else going on with the holidays, et cetera, up to this point in the book?
That's a big question.
Well, it's always fun, right? Crazy time of year.
I think the biggest challenge was in finding that personal time when there were so many other demands. You know, I had my granddaughter here, her parents. It was just, that's a young people's sport, raising kids. My hat's off to you guys. Be glad that you're young. They are a lot of work, and so it was hard to find it was hard to find my own time, but I managed to at least get half of what was on my schedule for me in, so I felt like that was a win.
Beautiful. How about you, Tim?
Finding the unmute button. I don't know. I think everything went sideways pretty much. Did a lot of scouting stuff. I ran myself on other people's schedules because that's what you do over vacations, and you get told to do things. But Trish, I'm looking for Tiffany. I'm getting an immersion blender today for my soup, so that's awesome. And my son is off at working on a restoration project right now instead of doing other useful things. So that's the important part is he got the Eagle Scout. Santa was okay for Christmas. And, oh, yeah, we're getting him iPhone repair kit is his Christmas present, so he can fix his mother's iPhone. So that's my win.
Perhaps a new enterprise. He can start fixing everybody's iPhones.
Actually, that's on the list of things to do. He's written a book on speeding up computers. If you're really lucky, he'll actually maybe, give you a report on how to speed up cryptocurrency mining rigs. But I'm not holding my breath on that one, Brian. So yeah, it is actually an honest God enterprise. He does have a website. It's not ready for prime time, but yeah, the kid's going to work his entrepreneur angle. It's going to be good.
If you can focus that kid, he's going to do amazing things in this world on a big scale. Tim's son Scott is an awesome guy and also a business partner of mine. So very, very cool interacting with him. And as I may have mentioned before, it's fun because he's about, not even quite double the age of our youngest son, and 7 years older than Jack. So, but very similar, bright young man. And so I feel like the work I'm doing with him kind of will be pre-paving for stuff that I do with my own guys. How about you, Tiff? I got to personally witness some of yours, but in terms of your own standpoint on it, your own view of it, tell me about how you did over these couple weeks.
I'm excited for Tim's immersion blender for his soup, quite honestly. We can't let that drop. But no, on an actual...
Have we talked about immersion blenders on here before? I don't know.
I don't think we have. However, I love my immersion blender, so it came up, but I think it's a good thing for soup.
Cool.
That being said, I definitely had some chaos when I had family visiting and trying to literally just find my own space in the house, let alone room to think and stay focused. But because family does not live here beyond the 4 days that they were here, I do believe that I still was able to get some work done. I actually had a business call with somebody who has a company called Neuro Nurturing, and we're talking about creating. She has a product which is like cards that make recommendations for children for parents on how to engage their children and help the their emotional and neurological development.
That
And
sounds cool.
we're talking about making a set of cards as for products for pediatricians, like advice to give, like for pediatricians to give out to their patients. They can put their own like marketing or can be branded on the back. So like a gift for new patients about
That's an amazing idea.
what to do when you're triggered along those lines. So making it like a short, like 10. The packets have like 30 cards, but making like a smaller, like 10 card packet, like what to do instead of spanking sort of thing. We were talking about that and then bringing that to the AAP. So we had that conversation, and we're talking and continuing to connect and collaborate in that way. So she's on the board of directors of the other thing that I'm doing. So I did something for my business.
That's cool. Well, no, I mean, and the question wasn't necessarily just about business, because business and life are inextricably intertwined, right? So
the rest of life was a clusterfuck.
there you go.
So I'm focusing on the positive.
Well, you know mine was. So I'm right there with you. Yeah, the end of 2018 ended up being quite interesting, as you all know. I get a chance to definitely reflect on a few things in my convalescence, and pretty much getting back to normal. But it's you just sort of never know what's going to happen or where it's going to come from. So you got to adjust, adapt and overcome. We used to say in the Marines. Yeah. And as Tim likes to say, and I agree with, we default to our lowest level of training. So what we've practiced and what we've mastered, when the shit hits the fan, everybody has a plan, right? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So what happens is we really see kind of these things test what we're made of and test what what levels we've gotten to in terms of really keeping things together, and how if we have a house of cards or a strongly built structure that's going to hold us up. So good stuff. Well, it's good to see all of you. And I was just looking around for one little graphic, but it's not necessary. So let's just kick right into the book here. I will share screens, and we are on chapter 16 of The One Thing, which is about time blocking and essential. So if you ever, I personally believe in continually reviewing the one thing and implementing it better and keeping the principles in mind. And I do it actively, both with groups like this, which I'm not sure if there will be another in the near future, but very much so with my one-on-one clients. And so that serves me well and also serves them well. But if you put the book aside and find yourself going astray, coming back to the work of chapters 13 through 16 and actually going through the exercises from the goal setting to now to the time blocking to et cetera, that's really the meat of things. So here we go. Now tell me if the view of this, is it better like this or like this, or the same, just centered or something, when you see it on my screen?
The other way was bigger.
Really? Okay. That's bigger?
Yeah. I mean, on my screen it is.
Okay. We'll roll with that then. So chapter 16 is called The Three Commitments, but first sentence is achieving extraordinary results through time blocking requires three commitments. So he gets into talking about adopting the mindset of someone seeking mastery and accountability. So mastery through accountability. And I love this idea of moving from E to P. Okay. And that's from entrepreneurial to productive. As I always say, per the in this book, anything the author underlines, extra important. What I highlight, that's just me, but I think are important, and I have a system of what these things mean. If you want to know, yellow being the most important, orange being supporting material, this purpley color, pink, or whatever, as it shows up here, is kind of where the rich, I call like the richness behind it, or supporting information on the higher level of thinking about it, and then blue is kind of where the negative things to watch out for. But anyways, that's sidetrack. Okay, so what the author has underlined, important, super important, and what the author puts a diagram in on, super important, and the big ideas at the end of the chapter, super important. So if you had to skim through this, all those things are super important. And then it's always interesting if you're reading on a Kindle to see what other people underline as well. If like 10 million people underline one thing, might be worth taking a look at. So talking about mastery, and what he says up here, you can see mastery as a path you go down instead of a destination you arrive at, it starts to feel accessible and attainable. I really like that. I think that keys in on a lot of things in life, really, of the enjoyment being in the journey and not any particular destination. And looking at it in that way, you're really where you want to be at all times in a way, or you can enjoy where you are at all times, enjoying the journey and the path to mastery. Talks about really mastering our most important work. And as I work with people, there's the way mastery fits in is it's got to be in the calendar, right? There's got to be time set, and there's things that, whether it's, for instance, in the business, if someone's trying to master sales or marketing, or if you're trying to master martial arts, like he mentions here, or any number of different things, whatever you're trying to master, if it's not in your calendar and you're not putting time into it, it's not going to happen. And he gets into, I like this analogy. At some point, white belts, the martial arts analogy, white belts training to advance know the same basic karate moves black belts know. They simply have to practice them enough to be able to do them as well. The creativity you see at black belt level comes from mastery of the white belt fundamentals. And that is so true. But he talks about Eric Anders' study about the 10,000 hour rule of taking $10,000 to master something. I think, what was it? Seth Godin write about that in one of his books too. I think it's pretty good. But or was it Seth Godin? Well, I can't remember. But nevertheless, that's how they actually come up with the 4 hours a day for time blocking. Our one thing, our one career work thing, our main career professional work thing, or main purpose, like our uber one thing, if you will, because right here, many elite performers complete their journey in terms of mastery in about 10 years. To do the math, is an average about 3 hours of deliberate practice a day, every day, 365 days a year. Now, if your one thing relates to work and you put in 250 work days a year, 5 days a week for 50 weeks, to keep pace on your mastery journey, you'll need to average 4 hours a day. Okay. So that's the amount of time you need to block every day for your one thing. And granted, as we go along, right, some of us are set up already to do that, and some of us are working on something on the side that's really our one thing that we're trying to fit in, right? So you might not necessarily have 4 hours a day, but it's got to be on the calendar, and it's got to be something, because if you're not making progress, and if you're not, even if it's a someday mastery thing, even if if you're not working on it now, if you haven't brought that goal into the present and gotten it on that calendar and then kept that appointment with yourself, it's not going to happen. But what I was starting to get off into is in terms of just mastering professional skills and needed to do our job or to run our business, more likely even, because say you're a coach or an entrepreneur, really any kind, you still need to have some basic computer skills, and you have to know how to, make changes on your website, or you should, and know how to competently use email and maybe video conference things like this, or webinar software, or whatever you need to use for your business. But bottom line is, if you don't have those skills, then you're at a disadvantage, especially when it comes to sales skills. And I talk about enrolling people rather than selling them in terms of what I advocate. But bottom line is, if you haven't mastered that, then you have no money coming in. If you haven't mastered your marketing, you are extremely limited in what you can do. So continuing to, you don't have to have those things mastered to start, but you have to continually practice and hone those skills. And if you don't give yourself that professional development time, as an example, then you're at a huge disadvantage. And that's why a lot of people's businesses don't work.
I also, can I say
Please,
something?
by all means.
I also think it's important in realizing that for a lot of, maybe it's just what I've observed, but a lot of people seem to go into an entrepreneurial field and they fully expect that they're going to be some millionaire in a year. They're going to have everything completely figured out in their business. And that actually points to the fact that there is a growth curve. There is a learning process involved in this, and that you're probably not being particularly honest with yourself if you think you're going to make a decision, start a business, and be, a millionaire in a year. As a physician, those 80 to 100-hour work weeks over 3 years adds up to about 11,000, 12,000 hours, right? What does it take to do that? And realizing that you have to put the time in to gain the proficiency, not to start making money, but to actually become good and qualified and competent, that there's no shame in the fact that it takes a few years for a business to become more successful, for you to become in power. And I think that's important, that people don't, they just like to say, like, I started a business, I made $1 million. Hire me, I'm a coach, I'll teach you how to make $1 million this year. Bullshit. Yeah,
there's a lot of that going on. And that's a very good point. Looking at like a doctor or any other professional, especially in the medical field, how many hours you had to put in to even get the blessing of, okay, well, you can go out and do this now.
Yeah, they just compacted it into 3 years. 10,000 hours in 3 years is a lot of work.
Yes.
But they exceed that 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
Before they say you're allowed to go practice.
Yeah. And you guys have heard me talk about, and this comes from my coach, but there's the job of what we do, which is really our reward. So if we're, whatever service we're providing or coaching we're doing or writing books, speaking on stages, whatever that's the job. So that's the reward, and ideally what we love to do the most. Then there's the business of our business, which is how to make it make money. Okay. Your sales, your marketing, et cetera. Then, collecting money. And then everything else is the busyness. So the job is a reward. The business is the economic engine of the whole thing. And the busyness is all the other bullshit that ideally you'll minimize what, your part in doing that. You'll delegate it. You'll find other people you'll farm it out. You'll have assistants. You'll hire a virtual assistant or have an actual assistant, whatever the structure of your business is. But the less of the busyness you do, the more that you can do, you get to do your job. The more you master the business of what you do, the more you get to do your job and the more you get to get paid for your job. And really the less you have to work. Back to share. So more than anything else, expertise tracks with hours invested. By the way, as I was reviewing this today, I've been realizing this chapter, this is one of the chapters I'm probably going to read more from the book than usual, because there's so rich in this, and so pithy, as I like to say sometimes. The pursuit of mastery bears gifts. When you commit to time blocking one thing, make sure you approach it with a mastery mentality. This will give you the best opportunity to be the most productive you can be, and ultimately be the best you can become. I'm going to open this on my Kindle as well, because for some reason, my most current underlinings don't show up on here. So then when I'm trying to talk to you guys and go through it at the same time, I get out of it's disorienting is what I'm saying. All right. Let's see if the next thing came in. Okay. So over and over again, time blocking is essential to mastery, and mastery is essential to time blocking. They go hand in hand. When you do one, you do the other. Before I get into this cool E to P thing, any more comments on just what we started out with there? You guys agree with the 10,000 hour rule in terms of mastering something? Anything else along those lines?
Yeah. Can I argue?
Sure.
The 10,000 hour rule isn't actually for mastery so much as it is to become considered world class. That's an elite performance level.
Okay.
30,000 hours is the number you need for true mastery, but that's like Leonardo da Vinci mastery as opposed to just being as good as the Beatles. The Beatles were the 10,000 hour rule. Leonardo da Vinci was 30,000 hours, and that's a
I would actually agree with you on that. I would actually totally agree with you on that.
And the most important part about it, what you said, Brian, from the book, is the pursuit of mastery.
Yes.
I've been working with kids for a long time. You never master it. You just pursue getting better. I mean, over Christmas vacation, I bribed the children with money to get them to read the book Atomic Habits. So there are children who got handed money in order to read a book. I mean, yes, true. It does work every now and then. And I paid them in advance. So the little bastards have to pay me back if they don't finish the book by Monday. I don't even Tiffany's smiling and laughing on that one. Okay, but Brian gets it. So the important part is the pursuit is what we're after. So I've got my little off the soapbox.
No, that's good. That's good. Yes. Really even to get to start even getting into the realm of mastery, and to get into the realm of world class on the way to mastery, we need to get those 10,000 hours in, and then of course it never ends, right? And he mentions Leonardo da Vinci in this chapter as well. I'll see if I don't go past his quote there. This was an interesting question. So moving from E to P, which is from entrepreneurial to productive, this is interesting. But this is a serious question here. Are you doing this to simply do the best you can do, or are you doing this the best it can be done? And that's a big question, and we won't go into it too much here, but it is a good challenging question. And maybe you don't even want to do it the best it can be done. But I would think that if you're buying into the mastery, and this is your passion, this is your love of the thing you love to do in life, that you want to do it the best it can be done. So approaching it with that mindset will get you a lot further than fighting for your own limitations, as many of us and all of us will do from time to time, of why we can't do it better. Path of mastering, was that?
Yeah, well, I think when you talk about moving down that path, I think the whole idea is that we'll never get there, but when you really boil down your purpose, when you really get that one thing figured out, and mine is just, this is my third time through this book, and it's still morphing it closer and closer to the thing that's always going to be fun walking towards.
Yes.
If it's the right one thing. Doesn't matter if I ever get there, if I know I'm doing what is really the purpose that I'm setting out to achieve, I only want to do it the best I can. There's no other option. Otherwise the journey's going to suck.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of joy and fulfillment in doing it the best we can. And yes, if we've chosen that right thing, it doesn't feel that much like work. The job part of our one thing shouldn't really feel much like work. It should be the fun part. It should be the reward. And even the business part can be fun because making money is fun. And part of that economic engine is helping other people to be committed to achieving results and implementing what you're showing them, or what services you're providing, or using the products that you're selling them. So it's all tied together, and really good stuff. Good stuff, Jimmy. Path of mastering something is a combination of not only doing the best you can do it, but also doing it the best it can be done. And that seems like a tall order, but if you love it and you're good at it, then continually improving how you do it isn't much like work. And it is critical to getting the most from time blocking. So it's called from moving from E to P. I got to read this paragraph here, or some of it. When we roll out of bed, tell me if this sounds familiar. When we roll out of bed in the morning and start tackling the day, we do so in one of two ways: entrepreneurial, the E, or purposeful, P. I said productive, but it's purposeful. Okay. Entrepreneurial is our natural approach. It's seeing something we want to do or that needs to be done and then racing off to do it with enthusiasm, energy, and our natural abilities. No matter the task, all natural ability has a ceiling of achievement, a level of productivity and success that eventually tops out. Although this varies from person to person and task to task, everybody in life has a natural ceiling for everything. So I definitely used to be running on that entrepreneurial track. And it's taken a lot of focus from the principles of this chiefly, and some other resources and influences, to pare that down to purposeful. But I really think the typical entrepreneurial mindset is to do exactly this: see something we want to do, needs to be done, racing off to doing it with enthusiasm, energy, and our natural abilities. Okay. How far does that get us off track? Without the planning, without the time blocking, without the calendar, the purpose-driven priority, we don't know what to say yes or say no to. We can't. And if we keep at it, we can continue to fine-tune it along the way, and it's going to change. And in one of the other chapters, there's the who, what, when, how, or that graph of the bigger relationships, the bigger, making it bigger. That's the graphic I was freaking trying to find. But if you remember it, there's if you have it small and if you have it large, and there's the axis going up. I forget exactly where it was, but nevertheless, these things are going to change if you're continually improving, if you're continually honing this, if you're continually better at trimming the fat and using your shield of your schedule, your sword of your priority, and your armor of your purpose, and defending what is the most important to you ruthlessly, then you're going to get shit done. And you're also going to be at your best for you first, and then by virtue of that, and I mean physically, financially, and time-wise for everyone else that's important to you in your life and for your maximum impact on the world. Now, the people here, I don't think are looking for ordinary results. We're looking for something extraordinary. Otherwise, we would just keep plodding along and go do what everybody else does. So that's why we're talking about this stuff, because we don't want just ordinary results. We want something special to us. I mean, it doesn't have, your thing doesn't have to be special to me, and vice versa. But bottom line is, we're looking for something more. We want to have more control. We want to have, we want to work smarter, not harder, and be more focused and not drag things out and not be distracted and really be effective so that we get to where we want to go. And these are the ingredients right here, folks. Questions, comments? Okay, we got diagrams. But highly effective, highly productive people don't accept limitations of their natural approach as the final word on their success. When they hit a ceiling of achievement, they look for new models and systems, better ways to do things to push them through. They pause just long enough to examine their options. They pick the best one, and they're right back at it. Notice it says they pause just long enough to examine their options. We don't sit around and think and research the whole world to figure out the absolutely optimal, best possible thing to do, because then we never start. So keep that in mind. But you do have to pause and reevaluate. Okay. The entrepreneurial approach, doing what comes naturally. Hit this natural ceiling of achievement, characterized by disappointment, resignation, greener pastures. So shit, I can't do what I was trying to do. Maybe it's something else I should be doing, and the cycle continues. All right. See a lot of this going on.
Yeah, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Nothing changes, nothing changes. Purposeful approach, doing what comes unnaturally, and we're going to talk about how that happens, but this natural ceiling of achievement is really shattered. Focusing, models, systems, breakthroughs. Okay, so focus is in the mindset. Modeling is in looking at other people who have done similar things successfully. Systems, the tools and software and organization that you need to know, and breakthroughs, which I believe come from accountability and coaching ultimately. A different result requires doing something different, just like what Jimmy just said. Make this your mantra, and breakthroughs become possible. Talks about the okay plateau, and if you're in search of extraordinary results, accepting an okay plateau or any other ceiling of achievement isn't okay when it applies to your one thing. When you want to break through plateaus and ceilings, there's only one approach, which is P, purposeful. In business and life, we all start off entrepreneurially. We go after something with our current level of abilities, energy, knowledge, and effort. And that's what we should do, right? In short, everything that comes easily or naturally. That's comfortable because it feels natural, and it's who we currently are and how we currently like to do things, but it is also limiting, because when E, or entrepreneurial, is our only approach, we create artificial limits to what we can achieve and who we can become. We tackle something with all E and then hit a ceiling of achievement, we simply bounce up against it over and over. This continues until we just can't take the disappointment anymore and become resigned to this being the only outcome we can ever have, and eventually seek out greener pastures elsewhere. When we think we've maxed out our potential in a situation, starting over is how we think we get ahead. The problem is this becomes a vicious cycle of taking on the next new thing with renewed enthusiasm, energy, natural ability, and effort, until another ceiling is hit and disappointment and resignation sets in once again. So, vicious cycle. This could apply to a business, could apply to a relationship, could apply to your health, everything, really. Because there's always different ways to go about things if you're committed to them. Bringing P to the same ceiling and things look different. The purposeful approach says, I'm still committed to growing, so what are my options? Asking better questions, right? Using the focusing question to narrow these choices down, the next thing you should do. It could be to follow a new model, get a new system, or both. But be prepared. Implementing these may require new thinking, new skills, and even new relationships. Probably none of this will feel natural at first. That's okay. Being purposeful is often about doing what comes unnaturally, but when you're committed to achieving extraordinary results, you simply do whatever it takes anyway. So what I was talking about is following these new models, getting new systems, new thinking, new skills, new relationships. What do those things take? Well, one thing it takes is time, right? So it better be on your fucking calendar. Because otherwise most likely no consistent time is being dedicated to it. It's going to take time, it's going to take energy, it's going to take commitment, it's going to take investment of money. So be prepared to do all those things if you're going to be purposeful. Otherwise, just cruise along at the same level and keep bumping your head on that ceiling. And we've all been there. I'm not saying that because I haven't been there, because I've been there many times. But then I go back to the drawing board of this stuff and retool, re-engineer what I'm doing, and or continue to fine-tune something that's working pretty well, and I want it to work better.
Well, Brian, my challenge right now is getting the family calendar set for the year, because going back to the very beginning where you schedule your time off first.
I love that. It's such a great
That was a hell of a fight I had last night. So, yeah, it got raucous.
A fight with yourself or a fight with your wife?
It was a discussion with my wife. So that's what the important part was, to start arguing about the calendars and who's running our calendar so we can actually say no. And right now, believe it or not, the school board has not yet met to give me the calendar for next year. So I can't even plan what I need to plan in October now, because I don't know when the school's going to be out.
Right.
But the point is this is January. I'm arguing about October. At least I'm thinking that there is an October. I'm not stuck in the squirrel and trying to figure out what I'm doing tomorrow. So I'm thinking that everybody should probably be evaluating their calendar for the year and reducing the resistance to get things done. Because that's the arguments I'm having with my family, and getting everybody to sit down and say, okay, these are the days off that we're going to guard. So
absolutely.
It's all part of the book.
Well, I love that you're actually doing that exercise, because it felt so counterintuitive for me to do it. What we was talking about is blocking out your calendar with your vacations and your time with your family and your time for yourself first, all through the whole year, and then including like long weekends, vacations, et cetera, and then putting your work around that. And depending on what your situation is, you may have more or less freedom to do that. But what I would suggest, Tim, is, that was weird. I guess it's autofocus if I move. Just approximate it for now. So if you think you're going to have a week, or certain days in October or December, whenever, just put something in there as a placeholder and until you get the information. But has Chris read this book?
No, neither has Scott, for that matter. But I'm
get
working
your wallet out, man. Payola, pay them off, and then get it done. No, seriously, but it might help, or at least maybe an excerpt in terms of the logic that you're using. Not that you're saying it isn't enough, but it'll help her and him understand better the idea behind it. Just an idea.
I think the school board could use a copy as well.
Yeah, no shit. Good point, Jimmy.
Yeah, those bastards.
Anybody else? If you haven't tried this, you haven't lived. All right. Live the accountability cycle. There's an undeniable connection between what you do and what you get. Actions determine outcomes, and outcomes inform actions. Be accountable, and this feedback loop is how you discover the things you must do to achieve extraordinary results. This is why your final commitment is to live the accountability cycle of results. Now, guys, what we're doing right here, good on you. Congratulations. This is in the direction of accountability, but it's not really enough. Okay, what we were able to do in this Q4 challenge is more of an overview and/or reminder and/or push toward implementing these things. But as if you're anything like me, if you don't have a coach or at least an accountability partner or mastermind group of some sort that you actually share your goals with and your progress with, then you can rationalize and drag your feet and convince yourself or distract yourself to do just about anything. So make sure you have that. I believe I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but if I'm not, it's worth it. It's worth it. And we're going to talk about just some hard numbers on this in a minute. But taking complete ownership of your outcomes by holding no one but yourself responsible for them is the most powerful thing you can do to drive your success. Accountable people are results-oriented, never defend actions, skill levels, models, systems, or relationships that just aren't getting the job done. They bring their best to whatever it takes without reservation. We're not talking about playing, tic-tac-toe here. We're talking about your life and your livelihood. And so that's why this stuff is just that important. Accountable people achieve results others only dream of. When life happens, you can either be the author of your life or the victim of it. It's binary, okay? There are only two choices, accountable or unaccountable. This may sound harsh, but it's true. Every day we choose one approach or another, and the consequences follow us forever. And this little diagram is about two managers of competing businesses who both experience a sudden shift in the market. One month there's a continuous line of customers stretching out the door. The next one, no one shows up. Here's how each manager handled it. Okay, so we all know, guys, gals, life happens, shit happens, right? And that's just going to happen. Stuff happens, okay? I am like Tiffany, living with the mantra of everything always works out for me, but nevertheless, things are still happening, okay? So the accountable person seeks reality by asking what's happening, acknowledges reality. This is the way it is, owns it. If it's to be, it's up to me. So the buck stops here, extreme ownership. Finds a solution, by asking what can I do? Gets on with it, okay, let's do it. So that's the accountable manager, what they would do, or the accountable person in that situation. When life happens to the victim or non-accountable person, first step, avoids reality, asks no questions. Second step, fights reality. That's not how I see it. Third step, blames. If everyone would just do their job, personal excuses, it's not my job. Waits and hopes. If it was meant to be, it'll happen. Okay, is this an awesome chart or what? Who loves this? Who can relate to this?
Oh, yeah.
I've done both. Absolutely done both. But the more you can go this direction, it's like the 80-20 rule, okay? If 80% of the time you're accountable, then you're going to crush the rest of the competition, and you're going to get where you're going, okay? Because life is going to happen, and none of us are going to do all this perfect all the time by any means. But if you stay in that zone of the 20% of things that give you the 80% of the results, but also 80% of the time staying in the 20% of those things, and 80% of the time going in the right direction versus only 20%, then to get you there. But This is a great diagram. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I like this diagram a lot. It reminds me, I do this thing at work, acceptance commitment therapy. And it's about, staying in the now and, really using mindfulness strategies to accept where you're at and then get on with it.
Yes.
And it really takes people from that victim mentality to that survivor mentality. From that, they can get into a mentality where they actually think they can do something.
Yes.
And that's what this whole diagram made me think, once I accept the reality and acknowledge it and own it, I'm the one responsible for how I'm looking at it. I can just find a solution and I can get going. But until I get that reality acceptance, everybody else is to blame. Every other system is the problem. It's the phone. It's Facebook. I mean, there's a zillion of them out there. But the reality is, what's really going on? Can I accept? There it is, and then can I move past it?
Yeah, and stop. I mean, I should open this up again, but stop blaming, stop making excuses, stop fighting for limitations, and so on. I think it was Tony Robbins that always used to say, take a realistic look at where you're at or what's going on. Not any better than it is, not any worse than it is, but not any better than it is. Just get real with what's actually happening, and then go from there. And he does say, "Grand victim" is a tough word, but it's talking about the attitude, not the person. Though, if kept up long enough, these could become one and the same. No one is born a victim. It's simply an attitude or approach. But if allowed to persist, the cycle becomes a habit. And we've talked about habits, and habits are so much more important than I think a lot of us give attention to. But we get in the habit of, and I'm not talking about the habit of brushing your teeth or whatever. I'm talking, or making your bed. I'm talking about the habit of expecting a certain type of result, or the habit of doing certain things a certain way, or the habit of expecting good things to happen or bad things to happen, or the habit of looking at the glass half empty or half full. And we get into, habits are what we practice, and when we want to do new things, we just have to practice something new, conscientiously and consistently practice something new, and build powerful habits that will support us rather than take us off track. Highly successful people are clear about their role in the events of their life. They don't fear reality. They seek it, acknowledge it, and own it. They know this is the only way to uncover new solutions, apply them, and experience a different reality. So they take responsibility and run with it. They see outcomes as information they can use to frame better actions to get better outcomes. It's a cycle they understand and use to achieve extraordinary results. That's a great point, because people who aren't seeking reality and seeking and taking an honest appraisal of things, it's because or trying new things and doing things a different way. They're scared of the outcome of failure. We should talk about failure for a second here, because I don't really believe in it. What are you guys' thoughts about failure? I think failure is feedback. I think failure is essential to progress. Failing forward, I talk about all the time. Fail forward faster. Like, do something. Don't sit around and try to make it perfect. Make your best decision with the information that you have or can gather efficiently, quickly, and take off doing it. And then the only way to see if it's working is to actually try it. If we read it in a book and we don't do it, if Tim reads about blocking out his calendar and doesn't go do it, then he's never going to know. He's never going to experience the benefits of it. He's never going to see what works and what doesn't. So you got to start somewhere. It's not going to be perfect the first draft. I'm just saying Tim, but I'm speaking to all of us here, and including myself. I wasn't perfect the first draft. I've got at least quarterly or even more often, take a look at my calendar and how things are working out. Are my blocks that I've created for not only rest, relaxation, recovery, and family time and personal time, are they falling? Am I able to keep those appointments with myself and my loved ones? Am I able to accomplish my work at the times that I've set out to do that? And all the other things that are on there, are they actually happening when they're scheduled? Because if they're not, then either we have to change our behavior, or something needs to shift around in the calendar, or new agreements need to be made with clients, business partners, family members, about when we're doing things and how we're doing them, and when to manage their expectations so that the shit is actually working. For a long time, I had a lot of stuff in my calendar that never happened when it was supposed to, if at all. It was just like a pretty decoration until I really dove into this and implemented what was in this book. It was a nice idea. And before that, I didn't even really pay that much attention to a calendar, except for what either what was going to make me money in terms of my business, like client calls and fulfillment, and my family. And I definitely forgot mostly about myself in terms of taking care of myself. So I was either basically being a workaholic and someone who was worn out by the time and trying to squeeze in, and always saying no later, daddy's working type of thing. And that's no fun of a place to be. So I think you could all relate to that on some level or another, whether it's with.
I mean, you asked the question about what we thought of failure, and I think you take the negative connotation away from it. Like, it's important. I think it's important to not do something perfectly if you're actually stretching yourself well enough to grow. Otherwise, you're not stretching, you're not growing, and you're not learning. So Absolutely. It's just the negative connotation we've put on failing. And as someone who's a recovering perfectionist, right? Like, I wouldn't go to a class at the gym because I didn't know where to get the mat and do all the things. If I didn't know how to do it perfectly, I wasn't going to necessarily do it. And that's truth. Like, I literally had to know how to do what I was doing exactly perfectly. Like, I'll learn yoga at home and then I'll take classes because I have to know how to do it before I can take classes. I recognize you're laughing because it's true.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, no, but I think we can all relate to that on one level or another. And
beginner meetings. I'm not going to a beginner meeting of any sort. No beginner meetings. Why are you not going to a beginner meeting? Doesn't matter what type of business, doesn't matter what it is, because then someone would think I'm a beginner and I don't do that. Right?
Yeah.
Learning that it's okay to not know how to do things perfectly, and recognizing that. So failing is just required for learning so that we're actually continuing to grow. Yeah. Otherwise, we stay stagnant on what we already know how to do. I mean, that's what I teach the kids all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how much you get right. I care what you're getting wrong. That's opportunities to learn. That's awesome. Let's celebrate what you did wrong so we know where we can focus on your learning and move forward, rather than, as someone who got straight A's my entire life, that did not serve me. It did not serve me to grow because I wasn't actually stretching.
Right.
When I think of it in terms of more of a outdoor or sports analogy, I've been skiing since I was 4. I've been mountain biking since I was about maybe 40. And I always say, if I don't fall when I'm skiing, I haven't played hard enough. And if I don't come back with blood on me or soaking wet when I'm mountain biking, it's been a wasted trip too. There's got to be dumps on the bike. There's got to be scrapes. There's got to be falling off the bridge into the water. And there's got to be falls on the slopes, or I
personally don't need those things. I'm just letting the universe know.
Well, no, I just don't want to coast.
If you're doing something that you're playing hard at, or continuing to challenge yourself at, that's going to happen. Yeah, it's got to happen. And if we only do things that we know how to do, then we never do new things. Period. Good stuff. Great stuff, guys. So one of the fastest ways to bring accountability to your life is to find an accountability partner. Accountability can come from a mentor, a peer, or in its highest form, a coach. And I'm happy that many of us here are coaches and aspiring coaches. But here's where it comes down to the accountability and also writing down goals. Okay, you're going to read this. Earlier, I discussed Dr. Gail Matthews' research that individuals with written goals were 39.5% more likely to succeed. So our goal setting to the now exercise will get you 39.5% more likely to succeed. Okay, I think it's probably even better because this is just individuals with written goals, and goal setting to the now really puts power into it because it puts it into your calendar now. It puts someday and brings someday into now, into the tangible space where you can work on it. But there's more to the story. Individuals who wrote their goals and sent progress reports to friends, aka accountability partners, mentors, peers, or coaches, were 76.7% more likely to achieve them. As effective as writing down your goals can be, simply sharing your progress toward your goals with someone regularly, even just a friend, makes you almost twice as effective. Accountability works. Those are serious numbers, guys. I mean, that is a huge difference. Okay, from whatever likelihood without writing anything down to 40% more likely to almost 40% to almost 80% more likely by having accountability, which is, being honest with somebody, having two people that are being honest with each other about progress, because people hide and people pretend and we rationalize and we say, oh, okay, well, I'll get to that next time or whatever. And then days, weeks, months, years, and decades go by. Do they not? If we don't have a strong priority and strong accountability, we're talking going across all areas of life. I can look at things even now that are that way for me that haven't gotten that attention and that priority. So at least make sure your top priorities get that priority. Back to Erickson, confirms the same relationship between elite performance and coaching. He observed the single most important difference between these amateurs and three groups of elite performers is that the future elite performers seek out teachers and coaches and engage in supervised training, whereas the amateurs rarely engage in similar types of practice. We're not doing this all on our own, guys. And I think the fact that you're here means that you know that. There are always higher levels, though, and the more there's no higher return on investment or ROI than investing in yourself. So if you don't have a coach that you're working one-on-one with, or an accountability group or mastermind group that you're working with that's consistent and truthful and transparent and consistent and real, being real with each other, then I would highly recommend finding one and doing whatever it takes to work with them, because it'll make all the difference in the world and bring you beyond 80% more likely to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Coaching will help you with all three commitments to your one thing. On the path to mastery, on the journey from E to P, or entrepreneurial to purposeful, and in living the accountability cycle, a coach is invaluable. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to find elite achievers who don't have coaches helping them in key areas of their life. And you know this both in business and in sports and everything. All got coaches. It's never too soon or too late to get a coach. Commit to achieving extraordinary results, and you'll find a coach gives you the best chance possible. Okay. Always having this domino metaphor, it's always worth revisiting. We're hitting that leverage, lining things up, taking time to plan and line things up, from purpose to priority to productivity and profits. We're going to have these dominoes knocking down. What's the one thing that I can do for XYZ that such by doing it, everything else becomes easier and necessary because these dominoes are falling. Okay. Big ideas at the end of the chapter. I know we're a minute over time, so we're doing pretty good. And like I said before, if you're reviewing chapters, hitting the big ideas is really important. Commit to be your best. Extraordinary results happen only when you give the best. If you don't want to give your best to something or master something, you're probably doing the wrong thing. I would say if it seems like too much work, naturally there's going to be frustrations. There's going to be stuff that you're better at and stuff that you're less good at, both in business and life in general. But if you enjoy it enough to have decided that it's your one thing, and that's what I'm calling it our Uber one thing or overarching one thing in terms of our career, profession, main contribution to the world, legacy, et cetera, that you're going to give that 4 hours a day to 5 times a week. It has to be something you love. It has to be something you're passionate about. And if it's not, if the job of it seems like too much work, then I would seriously suggest looking into something else. And that's why I shut down my marketing agency. And that's why I'm doing only exclusively coaching now, besides a little consulting on the side, marketing. Because it's not like it wasn't working. It's not like it wasn't making money. It was not like I wasn't good at it. But I just didn't have the passion for it anymore. And it was burning me out. And that's a hard decision to make. Dr. Noonan retired from medical practice. Very profitable one. Why? Why, Dr. Noonan?
It was sucking the life out of me.
There you go. So if the job that you're doing is sucking the life out of you, it's not the right one thing. You got to go back to the drawing board. You have to, because it'll kill you. It'll kill you, or it'll kill your dreams, or it'll if it doesn't kill your body, or it'll kill your spirit for sure. Be purposeful about your one thing. Move from E to P, from entrepreneurial to purposeful. Go on a quest for the models and systems that can take you the furthest. Don't just settle for what comes naturally. Be open to new thinking, new skills, and new relationships. The path of mastery is a commitment to be your best. Being purposeful is being a commitment to adopt the best possible approach. And that's within reason. Don't take a decade to figure out to start. Don't take a decade to figure out what's the best possible approach in order to start, because that's crazy. Just the best with the information that you have as intelligent people and the resources at your fingertips, you can find a viable direction to move in. And that's the same thing with the one thing. If you're trying to determine really what your one thing is, what your real purpose and passion is, if you get somewhere in the direction, then and move forward, take steps forward, then your view will change. The doors that are open for you will change. You'll walk up each hill on the way up the mountain or what have you, and you'll get a different view of what's going on. And it's only through those actions in a general direction that you can get more specific and clearer. 3, take ownership of your outcomes. If extraordinary results are what you want, being a victim won't work. Change only occurs when you're accountable, so stay out of the passenger seat and always choose the driver's side. And number 4, find a coach. And find a coach with a coach, okay? If your coach doesn't have a coach, then they don't really believe in what they're doing enough to invest and continually growing. There should always be a higher level of mastery that is trying to be achieved. So if that's what you're trying to do, work with somebody who's doing the same thing. You'll be hard pressed to find anyone who achieves extraordinary results without one. I'll repeat that. Find a coach. You'll be hard pressed to find anyone who achieves extraordinary results without one. Remember, we're not talking about ordinary results. Extraordinary is what we're after. That kind of productivity eludes most, but it doesn't have to. When you time block your most important priority, protect your time block, and then work your time block as effectively as possible. When you do that, you'll be as productive as you can be. And working your time block as effectively as possible has to do with cutting off distractions, not multitasking, et cetera, et cetera. You'll be living the power of the one thing. And a little preview of, I think what comes next is now you just have to avoid getting hijacked. Powerful stuff, right? Who's got any feedback on those things?
I agree. Powerful stuff.
Is this challenging anyone's thoughts about either what they're doing and or what their one thing is? Is it?
I think this kind of, this definitely solidifies a lot. I mean, I feel like I coach a minimum of 37 and a half hours a week through my job. If I'm not coaching clients to perform better and become better people, I'm coaching my coworkers to do a better job, to be all they can be. And it never feels like work. It always just feels like I'm doing what comes natural to me. And so the work that I have to do is those things that come unnatural to me, which is the setting up the marketing side of it, time blocking out the time to do the things that I'm not already good at.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the 2019 challenge, is because I love what I do so much. I'm not quitting. I'm not retiring. I could, but I'm not going to, because I enjoy it so much and I get better at it every day. But I got to find the time and I got to block out the time to do what it's going to take to build the business eventually, so that when I'm just too tired to do 37 and a half hours every stinking week of this stuff, I can maybe cut it back to 15, and do it and make the same amount of money by being in my own business at that time. So it's, it's going to be a chase. It's going to be a journey, and it's going to be exciting.
For the rest of you, what Jimmy's talking about is he coaches within his job as an employee, and he's also, what his challenge is coming in is blocking out the time to build the business outside of that, his own business, his own coaching practice outside of that, so that he can transition in whatever the best way is, in part or eventually in full from that to that. So good stuff, Jimmy. That's exciting. Anything else from anybody else before we wrap up? How are we all doing in terms of the exercises with the goals and the calendar, et cetera, for the new year? How are things shaping up? Have you guys gotten some traction with that? Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet, but we're working on it.
Well, I would say traction is we're actually working on it as traction, but here on January 4th, whatever it is. So yeah, good on you.
I got my vacation into January already. So I'm taking care of me, and then we'll see where the business fits around me.
Next January or this January?
This January. I mean, I barely got into this January already, but I got some space to go. Okay. On vacation, I'll probably also get some July vacation in there, some August vacation, a few other things fit in.
Sure. Well, try to do the whole year, and ideally, this happens before the new year, but we get caught up with things. And now that the holiday craziness is over, it's a good time. It's a great time to take some time to reflect and to actually do these exercises and revisit the goals and the goal setting to now, revisit the priorities, revisit really what the time of your life. We're talking about the time of your life, the priorities of your life, and putting the things that are most important to you in there first, and then the work around it, even though the work is also very important. All right. Awesome, guys and gals. Thank you for showing up. I know we moved the day and all that, but we're getting her done. So I will see you all hopefully next Friday, same bat time, same bat channel. The recording will be up in the group sometime later tonight or tomorrow, depending on how long it takes to process on YouTube and whatnot. And if you haven't had a one-on-one with me that I offered as a makeup for kind of the juggling of things, please contact me and let's set it up. Let's chat offline here and dig into a little bit of your own personal situation so we can help fine tune it in a way we can't do it in a group setting like this. All right. I hope to hear from any of you who haven't done that yet soon. Ciao for now. Bye-bye, everybody.